Hello. But what if people go elsewhere? That was a question I was asked this week. We were discussing opening up our church building again, something that we're just beginning to explore, slowly and carefully. It's a huge responsibility, and we need to make sure that we're doing it with the health and the well-being of those who might attend at the front of our minds. So we're not in a rush. But the question lodged in my mind, what if people go elsewhere in the weeks that it will take us to make sure that we comply with the legislation and are keeping everybody as safe as possible? Why do we come to church? Why do we tell other people about Jesus? Is it so that they come to our church and sit on our pews or seats, so that they become our friends? Or is it so that they know Jesus? In which case, that question is far less important. We go to church for all sorts of reasons, and they're not always the reasons that we should be going to church. We go to church to worship God. We go to church to be in fellowship with other people. The Bible tells us that we should be living in community with others, that we are responsible within that community, and we need to be vulnerable with one another, that we hold each other to account and we allow others to speak into our lives. We go to meet with God and to celebrate that meeting with God. And being in lockdown when we've not been able to physically meet has been difficult. But whilst we're not able to physically meet, does it matter if others go to other churches? We are supposed to be in covenant relationship with one another. So surely once our church building is open, if that relationship with each other and with God is strong enough, those from our church will return to our church. And if they don't, is that important? So long as they are going to church, so long as they are in covenant relationship. But sometimes we go to churches because we like the preacher, or we like the music, or we like the style of worship, and that takes precedence. Now that's an important decision. It would become difficult if we really disliked of the form of music to stay in an attitude of worship. But I'm a Baptist, and in Baptist churches, the church meeting is what determines how we do church. In other words, everyone has a responsibility within that service on a Sunday or whenever day it takes place. What if they go to other churches? What are we doing about that? We as members of our churches, how can we help? You see, sometimes church becomes a cosy club. It becomes something that's familiar. It falls into a familiar pattern that suits us, and we don't go elsewhere because we like things the way that we are, the way that they are. Jesus was talking to people, and he said, what if you were invited to a luncheon or a dinner? He said, when you're invited, do you invite your friends or your brothers or your relatives when you give a dinner, when you prepare an event? Or your rich neighbours, so that they might invite you back in return and repay you? Far better, he says, when you give a banquet, when you put on an event, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame and the blind, and you will be blessed. Far better to think when we think about reopening our buildings or how we do church virtually, who needs to hear this message? And how might we convey that to the poor in spirit, to the blind in nature, to the lame? Keep safe.